Welcome to Coastside Poetry. Thanks to those of you who zoomed in and those who are watching on YouTube. We meet either physically or virtually on the second Tuesday of every month to celebrate spoken poetry. I'm Diane Moomey, and Steve Long and I are your hosts this evening. Our featured poet event is being recorded and streamed live onto YouTube as we speak. So anyone can look at it later. We'll be posting the link on our website, coastsidepoetry.org. This evening, we welcome popular Pescadero poet, Veronica Kornberg. Veronica is the recipient of the Morton Marcus Poetry Prize and has been nominated for Best of the Net and Best New Poets. Her work has appeared in numerous journals, including Indiana Review, New Ohio Review, Beloit Poetry Journal, On the Seawall, Rhino Poetry, Salamander, and Catamaran. She's a peer reviewer for the journal Whale Road Review. You can find her happily exploring among rocks and waves in the tide pools outside her home in Pescadero, or visit her website at veronicakornberg.com. Now, please welcome Veronica.
Thank you. Thank you for that warm welcome. First, I have to start off thanking you for including me in these wonderful readings. Steve and Diane, you've created such a great community. I'm really admiring of what you've achieved. I also wanted to, Diane has a new book. So if you missed her book launch, I just wanted to bring this to your attention because it's a marvelous book and a lot of fun. I hope we'll get to hear a lot more read from it. This being Coastside Poetry and me being from Pescadero, I thought I would focus on poems that are set along the coast or somehow reflect that. It turns out that Pescadero, which is this tiny, tiny place, has a lot of poetry written about it. I've sort of been collecting poems about Pescadero, and there's a Mark Doty poem. There are poems from the early 1900s about Pescadero. And of course, there's a poem by Kathleen McClung, who's here tonight. So I wanted to start off opening with a poem by the poet Christina Hutchins. Eye of the Storm, Pescadero Coast, 1972. The same shirt pulled over the same head. Not once, but again and again. A eucalyptus turned inside out. Brutal, foam white, the sea tore at its rocky coast. Route 1 was forsaken. The big house was unlit, the plowed yard a pool of rain. A cloud ceiling, pressed yet lower. Along worn cliffs in the farm workers' small windowed shacks, stoves burned into the dark of the day. It was Sunday, but only the storm made it Sabbath. In flooded fields, unharvested, Brussels sprouts clung to their stalks. Isn't that something? So my first poem will be Improvidence in Pescadero. Cottage at the edge of a crumbling cliff, crusted with orange lichen, algae, and termite wings. Redwood water tank, staves bowed, bleeding water. We strode out to chop dead trees, learned to fiddle with a pump bladder, fielded chiropractors, priced used tractors, chimed the names of everything around, rackline, blackberry, Wenzeltrap, woolly sea daisy, gumboot chitin. Below us, the violent sea broke its beautiful teeth on the rocks. This next poem, I'll just mention two things. One is, for those who don't know, there's a word chamarita, which is up and down along the coasts in these small towns. They celebrate a traditional Portuguese celebration with parades and dinners and other things. So that's the chamarita. And the other thing is the giant owl limpet, which is a mollusk that lives in the tide pools. Here is one. And on each one, on the inside, there is an image of a great horned owl. Every one. I don't know if you can see it, but there it is. Home. No matter how long I live here, I'll never be a local. Always someone from over the hill. Never named queen of the chamarita. Never read currents as easily as the lines of my palm. But I settle into my secret cove, awaiting the return of the elephant seals who winter here. Each day, the tide steals my boot prints from the sand. Each day I plant them new. The limit per catch of giant owl limpet, my neighbor says, is 32, sautés up nice. Named for an attachment scar that looks like an owl on the inside of the shell. You can see it only if you shuck it. The owl limpet tends its algae plot on wave-racked rocks, bulldozing barnacles and mussels, then retreating to its home scar, the precise hole it's carved for itself in the rock. If you pried me away from this place, turned me over and gutted me, you'd find a picture in the shape of a house, a wave the color of pearl. If you held me to your ear, you'd hear the click of the perfect match of key to latch. So I'm going to change the mood a little bit, go a little dark before we get lighter again. First, I would say the shearwaters referred to in this poem are these remarkable birds that are over the coast beginning about now, and they're by migration. And they're huge, they come in huge, huge numbers all day long, every day without stop. And those are the shearwaters flying over the water. And then the title of the poem is in quotes, and it was said with a shrug by a politician who I won't name, but it was his response to being told how many people were dying of COVID on his watch. It is what it is. Now the sooty shearwaters pull their day-long ribbon over the sea. In the middle distance, the black thread of wings presses along the invisible road of their ancestors, pulls us to the edge of the water, to the edge of something we are trying to grasp. There is the order of the world that we understand, and the order of the world we do not understand. A full moon always rises as the sun dissolves into the Pacific. Wild blackberries are sweetest on the tongue of a small child. There is no life to be had that doesn't include a knife stuck in the chest. Now the hidden clock of our hungers folds its hands. Feathers multiply on the shore. Squid shelter among ocean ledges. a heart like the new moon, pitiless, unlit. A nudibranch is a kind of sea slug. Self-portrait as nudibranch. Naked tongue, inch of muscle, barely submerged in full moon low tide. Flared white feather, filtering random creatures from brine. I have no poetry tonight as the tilted world slips through darkness. Only hold fast to this rock, awaiting the next wave. This is an eco poem, 21st century hide and seek. So smart, the stranded sea lion pup perched high, its rocky ledge beyond the high tide reach of hungry circlers. So gone, a mother strayed to sea in search of scarce sardines. So stealth, the morning fog, a blindfold full of methyl mercury from coal-fired power plants and cement factories, from orange tongues that lick the Indonesian night, and from the sooty footprint of my own computer screen. So metal in the brain, so blind man's bluff, so ali-ali, oxygen-free. We're shifting the mood up a little bit. This is about sticking to the follow through of decisions. And it sees me confronting my decision as a heron and I'm a fish. Conversation with my New Year's resolution. In the king tide ebb, you stand, a gray heron hunched against gray rain, still and immutable as the brain-dead rocks unfrocked by gravity. Do you sleep, ankle deep in algae, dreams still draining beneath your feet? Or wait in brutal calculus, a violent thrust of thrashing in the throat on the long walk from sea lash? Bird, when I first invented you, you looked uncomplicated. Gray fluff on a drunken sidewalk, watercolor wash laid down with a soft brush. But that is your gift, to lull me, your unwary fish. Force me to struggle, to muscle swish my escape or not. And as for you, you must kill, or failing, lift. Stream. I dipped my fingers into the trilling rush of you, and the blonde grass stood straight in the fields of my arms. This next one has a moon jellyfish in it, which, if you don't know it, is a big like topaz, sparkling gem on the beach, but of course quite gooey as well. Flirtation and a moon jellyfish. A golden gob in the sand. The moon's ectoplasm, you say, or wait, Neptune's loogie. Our pleasure is like that, pelagic, with no brain particularly, just a frilly ruffle at the base and gemmed light filling the globe. I love the way you tease the string of a kite with one hand while palming my thigh with the other. Beyond us, the hypnotized sea shifts its great heft as the moon commands. I spiral an orange with a sharp knife, arrange the peel into an empty sphere. For your dining pleasure, I say, a small sunset. That O, housed within dimpled skin, bright tiger burp, released from the surface of a rusty anchor that we cut loose long ago, abandoned to the bottom, left for the sand to bury. This is the wags in my family call this private speech. You can decide for yourself. Private beach. Sloped shoulder, necklace of coralline, algae, and driftwood, where the tongue of the sea licks and shadows slide across your flanks. Your cliffs, high bluffs, sea green, sea glass, whisper and salt rime. Your jasper, moonstone, touch of shining chalcedony, where waves drill the siltstone, obliterate all sound but the white roar of us, until the sea runs back and we return to ourselves, separate and light swept, painted with a fine layer of sand. Sunday, you'll find me on my knees in the barked clearing beneath the cypress. Say late March, when seedlings tessellate the ground. I could be praying, only in some personal religion of weed management. It's embarrassing, the degree of pleasure taken in easing a root intact from the loam. That slight give of the fleshy taper, like an upside down altar candle, still aglow with subterranean secrets. Oh, Sunday, with your great Pacific sigh at the base of the cliffs, your seabirds ratcheting the sun down through the trees. Sunday, with me resting finally in the hammock of your hand. And this will be my last poem for the night. What the ocean dreams at night. How can I explain to you that one night I lay face up on a bench, open as a fish filleted, so gobsmacked by the rivers of stars, I forgot about the sea murmuring below me at the base of the cliff, only breathed its rhythm, felt the earth's core press down my heft, felt the moon lift me. I tell you, the sea entered me, unburdened by any purpose, teeming with hunters and travelers, shadows and chandeliers spinning in its currents. And though I am smaller than the smallest speck in the largeness of galaxies and time, I held an ocean inside the cavity of my chest, in the glass vial of my mind. Sea, heaven, earth, porch, and singing. There was singing in the deep drifts, I tell you. Singing. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. All the paintings you produced, your words made paintings. Saw all these images floating by. Thank you so much. I'm going to invite folks to unmute and share a little feedback with Veronica before we have our open mic.
Exquisite. It's just beautiful.
Graceful. Just you have a very graceful, poised way of reading. Very beautiful.
Marvelous, marvelous, marvelous.
Beautiful meditative reading, Veronica. Thank you so much. It's stunning imagery in there.
Yes. And Veronica, you can know how stunning it was, how effective your reading was by the fact that my husband listened next to me. He's a computer engineer. He doesn't usually join in these things. You should be sure to read all the comments on that people are writing. Be sure to
have you always been wedded to nature and the ocean?
I have. Well, I didn't grow up very close to an ocean. We went there sometimes, it was a drive. And it was a different, I grew up in New Jersey. So the Jersey Shore is a very different thing than the sort of wild Pacific coast, of the Central Coast.
Right.
So very different, but I love it and can't get enough. And it's always speaking to me.
We are so fortunate that you are here in California celebrating the Pacific, Veronica. Such beautiful poetry. Thank you so much. We are very fortunate.
Yes.
Thank you.
Veronica, in college, we visited tide pools and so on. And I'm just amazed at your naming the nomenclature of the tide pools and all those animals and so on. Wonderful, wonderful.
You.
Yeah, your use of scientific terminology and the specificity with which you wield it, while at the same time going so in depth on kind of both your internal world and nature and its effect on you and the world around you, and that creates a very pleasurable contrast and a really unique voice.
I would echo what Bobby said. As someone who lived on the coast for 31 years, but adores Sonoma County now, I don't often feel called back, but your poems about Pescadero really called me back. So that's on the agenda very soon. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Veronica, you've lifted me out of the Sierra Nevada and have taken me over to the Central Coast and said, experience this with all of your senses and feel this to the core of your being. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Oh,
I loved your unique ways of talking about the ocean, which we often talk about, but you personified it. You had very distinct and specific and unusual words to describe. That's quite impressive and quite an inspiration to me as a poet.
The beach is my favorite place of all times, and our favorite is Pismo Beach. And there's a sense for me of being really kind of immersed in that world where the rest of the world that I don't really want to deal with kind of just falls away. And I really felt like your poems were really beautiful about finding that where you really are lost, of that beautiful disconnection that you really need from the rest of the world are in your poems.
And I found that the fact that you used just enough specific words was very grounding, because it can be very easy to float off in space, but just having those, and I can't even remember them now, but because they were creatures that I didn't know, a lot of them, but it was just like I want to say like a hold fast, something that kind of stuck me down and kept me from floating away and able to hear the rest of the word. I'm not saying this very well, but.
But I also agree with Diane, because when Diane said stuck me down there, I also felt that you took us underneath the ocean as well at the same time while describing the outside of it. It reminds me of one of the poems by Nathaniel Hawthorne, which says that between, I'm trying to remember the lines, and it goes something like, though there be fury on the waves, beneath them there is none. So that's what I felt about your poetry as well. It was so meditative and very calming underneath all those lines. So thank you so much, Veronica.
Good point.
It was
Wow.
pure music, Veronica, and you know that I love absolutely everything that you write, and when you read it, it's almost too much. Would you be able to, there's a lovely grace note in there, the little, I think, 3-line poem. If you could, would you mind reading that again? It's, I think, very special.
Wow.
In the midst of so many other special things, but it was something, if you're able to, I don't know if you're able to go back and locate that one, but it was just lovely.
What I might suggest, if it is going to be hard for you to go and find it, is we do like to ask our features to send us home after the open mic with one final poem. So if you're finding it hard to locate this one now, maybe you could locate it by then. Totally up to you. We have time. We have time.
And
So Veronica, this is
Veronica,
your first, oh, sorry.
if we want to read these more later, can you tell us which of your poetry collections they are in? It'd be nice if they're all in the same one.
You know, a lot of them you can get to through my website. Either there's a link if it's, you know, online, or maybe I've printed it out for a page.
Okay.
So that's veronicakornberg.com. So that's one way.
Okay, great.
I wanted to ask, this is your first full length, Veronica?
Well, I don't have a collection yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's out there in the world, I'm assuming.
It's out there. It's out there.
They'll pick, you'll get it picked up for sure.
I hope so.
I know it's rough.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many good poets, you know.
It's a lot of competition.
We all know, yeah.
Don't get discouraged.
No. Well, thank you.
If you do, just pick back up and just keep doing it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
You're all so generous, but let's hear your work now. And then I will read that little short poem at the end. How about that, Jay?
That sounds wonderful. Okay. So thank you so much, Veronica, and we'll stop recording in a moment. Those of you in the Zoom room, please stay online if you'd like to take part in the open mic. Thanks to all our YouTube listeners. Please tune in for our next regular Coastside Poetry event on Tuesday, October 12th, when we will welcome San Francisco poet, our very own Elise Kazanchian. Oh. So that brings us to the end of tonight's recorded program. Thanks so much for joining us and for helping to keep the lamps of poetry burning.